Revelation.
The reason it has what seems to be a lot of frightening images is because God cares enough to let us know when something important is going to happen. If you were running on a bush track in a national park and suddenly the track led straight to a treacherous cliff, wouldn't you want to know? And what would you think of the ranger who refused to put out a warning sign because he didn't want to scare anyone? You see, the book of Revelation is really one of the most reassuring books of the whole Bible. It's proof that God has our best interests in mind. It's a confirmation of that passage in the book of Jeremiah where God says, "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope." Tom seemed so outgoing and charming when Rita began dating him. She felt they had an intense, wonderful relationship. But after their marriage, he seemed to change from a supportive, understanding companion to a demanding, oppressive husband. Tom had his own very rigid ideas about what a perfect marriage should be. He felt the husband had to be in complete control. Tom handled the money and told Rita how to keep the house. He began to belittle her friends and criticize the way she did everything. When Rita obeyed her husband, he rewarded her. When she resisted, he either yelled or ignored her. Slowly, his anger became more and more abusive. Any small annoyance was enough to set him off. And then the verbal abuse turned into violence. He would throw things, shove Rita into a wall, and shake his fist in her face. On one occasion, he carried her outside in her nightgown and put her in the doghouse saying, "This is where you belong." To friends and neighbours, Tom and Rita seemed a prosperous, happy married couple. No one suspected that Tom, a prominent businessman, was slowly destroying his wife. He became more and more jealous and convinced himself that Rita was unfaithful. He even began monitoring her movements and phone calls. Sometimes he'd come home unexpectedly in the middle of the day to check on her. Rita, meanwhile, was trying to find a part of herself that her husband didn't own. She decided to get a job outside the home. That's when Tom started beating her. Now, why didn't Rita just go home and submit to their husbands and try to be kind and loving so that this won't happen again? Women have been made to feel that it's their responsibility to fix an abusive mate. Put your needs in him. Tom had to finally realize that his picture of what marriage should be like was terribly distorted. He had to confront his belief that a man who doesn't dominate his wife